Joanne, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
How are things out on the West Coast?
Well, actually, I'm in Colorado now.
Did you move there?
I moved
Where?
in Colorado Springs.
Wonderful. So
Yeah,
you've had to acclimate your lungs to higher altitude. What else has changed with that move?
you should have seen me huffing and puffing up the hills.
When I lived in Denver, they said it would take 6 months to acclimatize.
Yeah,
It took me a year.
yeah. No, I thought maybe I'm having a heart attack.
No,
But so far I'm upright.
yeah, good for you. Good for you. When did that move happen?
In mid-January.
Okay.
I just picked up in mid-pandemic and decided, okay, quit waiting. It's time to go. So I left.
Good on you. Well, what's it been like to be Joanne this last week or month?
Well, it's been a little confusing. You really you don't realize exactly how much you depend on your normal day-to-day routines and your friends and your contacts and
Yeah,
all of that good stuff. And so I'm in the habit of establishing new ones.
good.
And so that it all takes a little while.
It does.
Yeah,
Time and adjustment. It sure
yeah,
does.
it does.
20 minutes is not a lot of time. So I would like to spend another 10 minutes just connecting with you about this move and stuff like that. But let me ask you what you'd like to walk away with at the end of this 20 minutes.
Well, this is related to my move here, Nathan.
Sure.
I have been promising myself for some time that I was going to establish an actual coaching practice.
Hmm.
I have been volunteering my coaching time
Yeah.
through an organization in Southern California. And I have maintained that association, and I'm going to continue to volunteer a considerable amount of time.
Yeah.
But I really feel like I have something to give, and I need to challenge myself to establish an honest to goodness coaching practice. And I'm in a new place, so that I might as well get started here.
Fantastic. And I love that conversation. So in your mind, when we're done with our conversation, what will you be walking away with that will have made this an effective conversation?
Well, I don't know how much we're really going to be able to get done in 20 minutes, but I would like to have a step or two that I can take in the next few days or couple of weeks toward making some progress on that goal.
Okay. A step or two, making
Yeah,
progress.
yeah.
That's
And if we do 3 steps, that'll be a bonus.
that sounds infinitely doable. Well, so let's start building the bridge. Tell me what you have in place already that might be leaning towards that vision of establishing a new coaching practice.
Well, I really have a lot of experience. I spent 22 years in the EAP field, employee assistance programs,
Right.
and had a lot of really good corporate experience. Everything from Fortune 500 companies to little mom and pop places.
Yeah.
And what I learned is people are people. People in accounting have messy financial lives, just like
Yeah.
the CEO has a messy financial life,
Yeah.
or personal life, or whatever the case may be. So, I got kind of exposed to just about everything you can imagine.
Yeah.
And what that gave me was a sense that, people really are just people, no matter whether you like them or not.
Yeah.
We're all basically struggling with the same things.
Yeah.
And it gave me a kind of even-handedness.
Yeah.
So when I retired, I decided I wasn't really going to retire. And that's when I got going on coaching.
Yeah.
Now I have my ACC.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to decide if I'm going to shoot for PCC or really not worry about it. And I can tell you quite clearly, my biggest stumbling block is my age.
Mm.
I'm 75 and I can, I feel like I'm 55.
I would never have guessed 75. There's nothing wrong with 75, but doubt yourself. I would never have.
God bless hair color. Anyway, I I could do a couple of things at once. I really like team coaching.
Yeah.
And as you know, the ICF is putting some emphasis on team coaching because it's such a big deal.
Yeah.
And I like the energy of team coaching.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to embark on a certification program in team coaching.
Okay.
So one thing I have to do is figure out where I'm going to do that, in whose program am I going to enroll?
Okay.
And then as long as I'm doing that, I might as well go for the PCC. It's kind of ridiculous to leave that sitting on the table. And then the third thing is I really, one thing I know about myself is I'm a really good number 2. But I'm not a particularly good, I'm good being in charge of myself, but not in charge of other people, because I just kind of figure, well, get off your butt and get going.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that I need to do some exploration with some of the coaching organizations in the area to see if I can align myself with someone who would be willing to take me on.
I'm hearing wonderings about ACC versus PCC related to your age and stage of life. I'm hearing resonance and passion in you towards making team coaching credential an essential part of the conversation, which means PCC is probably on the table for you. And you know that there are coaching organizations in Colorado, which there are, and because you don't see yourself in a lead role, being on somebody else's team as a coach seems attractive to you. All of that stuff is good first steps in clarity. Let me ask you just a gee whiz question. I know you're a deep person of faith. How is God a part of this conversation for you?
Well, I would say that God is a part of this conversation because he's a constant presence in my life and has been forever, except for a few months in college when I thought, oh, I don't have to go to church this morning. And then one morning I woke up and I thought, I really miss going to church, and I've been going ever since. But there's also a part of me is I have grandchildren.
Yeah.
And it's important for me. They're all girls. I call them my Ahs because every last one of them, their name ends in Ah. And it's important to me for them to see that it's possible to live in this world as a person of faith, and still kind of accept that the world is changing rapidly, and you kind of need to not so much change with it as grow with it. So God is challenging me to find a way to, particularly in the area of prejudice and anti-racism. I've done a lot of work on anti-racism during this pandemic, and it's been revealing, that's for sure. But then I'm also realizing that I work pretty well with people, and I've had a lot of clients who are from very different backgrounds than mine. and I've been a successful coach with them. So
Mhm.
I feel good about being in an organization where I can help name that we absolutely need to be more diverse.
Yeah.
And we absolutely need to speak to the people around us. And there's only so much speaking you can do with a white skin.
Yep.
At some point, you have to turn things over to the people who look like the folks you're trying to reach.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's kind of a sidetrack, but
That's
I,
okay. But,
I feel pretty deeply about that.
what's related to that deep feeling? What's your sense of your life's purpose at this phase of your life?
Oh, to make the most I can of the rest of my life,
Okay.
and not just sit at home and watch TV and read books and think about what's the next trip I can take.
How is coaching related to that conversation?
Well, it keeps me going. People are so doggone interesting, and they can think of a multitude of ways to either confront or not confront whatever it is that's going on in their lives. And it's really fun to see if you can find a way to open a window and then watch that, then all of a sudden watch them just fling that window wide and say, oh,
Yeah.
is that what we've been talking about?
Yeah. New awareness is a beautiful thing to watch in people. Clarity is a beautiful thing to watch.
Yep, it is.
What are other things as you begin to coalesce and get concrete about your thoughts on next steps? What are other things that you need to be taking into consideration as you make these plans?
Well, not to get too busy, because
Hmm.
I really want to have a lot of balance in my life.
Mhm.
I want to have time for family. Now that the whole purpose of moving here was being close to at least one branch of the family.
Yeah.
Um, but I also want to have some time for myself. I like to write. I'm working on a family history, and if I don't do it, nobody will do it.
Yeah.
So, um, I, and my tendency is, okay, once I've decided to do something, that's what I concentrate on.
Okay.
So I'm going to have to kind of rein myself in, maybe.
So coaching needs to be a part of a larger life conversation of balance.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. What else? What else would be on the list of things you need to take into consideration as you begin to build?
Well, I need to get out there and get myself introduced to some people. And I have no difficulty calling somebody up and say, I'd like a few moments of your time, please. I don't need somebody to say, would you be willing to talk to this person? I just, I can pick up the phone and say, I'd like to talk to you if you can make the time.
Good.
But in this pandemic, you kind of need to be careful. I've had my first shot. I'll get my second one shortly. But not everyone is willing to spend time with you face to face at this point.
Mhm.
But Zoom is a wonderful tool.
I'm going to say we're sitting face to face and it's working just fine.
Yes, it is.
I think you might find a lot of organizations are meeting face to face like this, and it works really just fine.
Yeah.
You're not new to coaching. You've been, as you indicated earlier, you have a previous life in coaching, and it had a certain form. I'm curious what learnings you bring out of that space that need to be a part of this present conversation for you.
We didn't call it coaching, but as I look back on it, that's what it was.
Okay.
And the learning for me was that doesn't sound like I'm tooting my own horn, but
It was a safe space. Toot away.
okay, toot toot. This, when I was doing my EAP work, there were a number of organizations that when they were really facing something difficult,
Mhm,
like layoffs,
mhm,
or I worked with a client company, a big, huge company, on the very first AIDS case in the
mhm,
county of Los Angeles,
mhm,
where the employee, who was a valued employee, wanted to come back to work.
mhm.
And this was long before anybody knew much about AIDS.
Yeah.
And the organization wanted to put some things in place to get people ready for this. And they called us and they said, we need Joanne,
Yeah.
and we don't want to talk to anybody else. So, and that happened to be a number of times. When Orange County went through its bankruptcy, they were a client of ours, and I practically lived there. So there's something about how I present myself that gives people a certain level of, I don't know if it's confidence or trust. And I think that's the strongest thing I bring to my coaching is my coaching presence.
I'd affirm that. That's
Okay.
not getting your own horn. You need to know what you bring to the table.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
That clarity is good. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I've learned to curb my enthusiasm in terms of telling people, oh, what have you thought about? I have to say several times during coaching conversations, curb your enthusiasm,
So
Joanne.
you're a recovering consultant, like some.
Yes, exactly.
Um,
And a mom who knows everything.
right.
So, yeah.
Um, well, so you've got a lot of clarity about who you are, where you are in your life, what you want, the need for balance. And I hear clarity. You started with the question about ACC or PCC, but I heard you say, which means I really need to work on the PCC as I work on my team coaching credential. So chart your course, sister. You've got a lot of awareness, a lot of clarity. Tell me about your agency now. What are the next steps you want to take as you continue on this journey?
Well, one of the good things about this pandemic is we've all met people all over the country
Mhm.
that were names to us before, maybe we didn't even know,
Yeah,
and they feel like friends.
yeah,
So I have a lot of contacts in the coaching world, um, and so I can certainly tap into those. And
wonderful.
then one of my son's best friends has a coaching consulting business. So I'm going to make arrangements to visit with him about what his organization is up to. And then one of the coaching groups that is doing team coaching appears to have a group of people that are aligned, kind of loosely aligned with them. So I think that's who I'm going to look at getting my training with. It's a little pricey, but I'm not going to live forever. What I might as well spend the money on that. So I'm going to contact them, and I'm also going to contact ICF and look a little more thoroughly at who some of their approved training programs are. And then obviously I'll talk to Jonathan.
Okay. What are you going to do first, Joanne?
I'm going to talk to Jonathan.
Okay.
Because we have a good relationship, and he'll give me honest feedback. And then my next step is going to be to contact ICF and see what I have to do to get going on this.
When you have that conversation with Jonathan, what are you going to talk to him about?
Well, I'm going to tell him that I'm really interested in this team coaching thing, which he knows, but he's a busy guy. I'll just remind him.
Okay.
And to just to kind of get feedback from him as to whether or not he thinks that's a reasonable step for me to take.
Okay. What else might you talk to him about related to all of this?
Well, certainly I could talk with him about being my mentor coach. Although, quite honestly, I've had so much interaction with Jonathan that I'm gonna look for somebody else as a mentor coach just to get a different perspective.
Yeah, good for you. My timer just went off. So before Don moves us on, let me ask you the question. When are you going to have a conversation with Jonathan, and when are you going to have a conversation with the ICF?
I'm going to have a conversation with Jonathan within the next few days. I'm going to email him today and say, okay, time to give me a little time, please.
Okay.
And then whenever we can get that scheduled, I'll talk with Jonathan. And I'm going to house sit and pet sit for my son and his family when they go on spring break. And then I'm going to ask Christopher about contacting his friend, John. And I'll contact John and just talk with him a little bit.
Perfect. What about the ICF?
Oh yeah, in fact, I have some time this afternoon, and I'm going to do a little exploration with ICF.
Fantastic. Give me a 60-second summary of what you're walking away with today. That's important to you.
Just to get going, Joanne. And you've helped me identify the steps that I can take, and the pandemic is no excuse. I can do all of this just sitting right here. So I just need to get moving.
High five, sister. You got your 3 steps: Jonathan, ICF, and your son's consulting relationship. So you did great work in a very short amount of time. Well done.
Well, thank you. You're a good coach, Nathan.
I have good days and bad days like everybody else.
Don't we all?
And I think you made me look better than I probably am. So God bless you for that. Thanks, Joanne, so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, good to see you.
Nice to see you too.